All right, I'm ready to go. So our next topic is some bobcat research that we've been doing very recently. And many of you are probably very familiar with bobcats, but for those who are not, we put together some fast facts. So they are New York's only wild cat, and they are a medium-sized cat with gray to brown coat, whiskered face, black ear tufts, smaller than a Canada lynx, and about twice as large as a domestic cat. Identifying characteristics include black barring on their forelegs, white spots on the back of their ears, which is personally my favorite, but raccoons do kind of have this too, and they can trick you sometimes. Black tip tail, generally 5 to 6 inches long. In New York, they are pretty faint or indistinct spots on the body as opposed to bobcats out west. The average length and weight for males 21 pounds, females 14 pounds, but both sexes can exceed 30 pounds. And average length for males about 34 inches and for females about 30 inches. And as far as habitat that they're selecting for, in North America, they occupy a wide range of habitats, such as the rimrock areas of the west and arid deserts of the southwest, tropical swamps and bottomland forests of the southeast. And they're known to use agricultural areas, but avoid areas of intensive agriculture. In New York State, they also use a wide range of habitats within our state. So agriculture, but again, really kind of avoiding the areas of the state with more intensive agriculture. Brushland, forested or scrub shrub wetlands, and mature softwood or hardwood forests. And this photo is a photo that I took during our collaring project that we'll talk about in a little bit. But you can see it's a area here that's super thick. So what I would kind of say to some of our staff as we are setting these up is if it's so thick that you don't want to walk through it, that's probably where they're going to be. And this certainly was difficult to walk through. Right on the edge of a pretty big water body that we have in Region 9. So a little background on bobcats in New York State, kind of similar to Fisher. They were historically found throughout New York State. But unregulated harvests and the shifting land use when the Northeast was first settled really limited their distribution and abundance. So Long Island even had bobcats. There was actually a bounty system on there in the mid 1700s. In Long Island. They were extirpated on Long Island and Western New York by the mid 1800s. They were really treated as a pest species at that time. And although bobcats were rare in the Adirondacks due to the severe winters there, it's really not the most ideal habitat for them. It really became a holdout for them in the late 1800s because that was the area that that people weren't successful in extirpating them. So they hung on in the Adirondacks. In the 1970s, the New York State Legislature designated them as a small game species, and the bounty system was then prohibited. And at that time, the core population was found in the Taconic, Catskill, and Adirondack Mountains of New York. In the northern and southeastern part of New York, there was a highly regulated hunting and trapping season that was established in 1976. And that season structure remained mostly unchanged until 2013 when we opened some other areas of the state. But since the 1970s, the bobcat distribution has expanded across New York dramatically, including in central and western New York, where we started to document sightings in the 1990s. I won't really dive into much of the Bobcat management plan, but I did just want to touch on our three main goals, which is to first maintain or enhance the Bobcat population in all areas of the state where suitable habitat exists. The second goal is to provide for the use, sustainable use and enjoyment of bobcats by the public. And then the third goal is to ensure that we are meeting the public desire for information about bobcats and their conservation, use, and enjoyment. More information on our bobcat management plan is located on our website. So if you just go to our homepage, use a search bar to type in bobcat, you will be able to find our management plan. And we also have just a couple page version of the highlights of that plan too, if you'd like to check that out. So in order to achieve goal one of the things that we wanted to do was a species specific survey on bobcats. So we already had our Fisher cameras out and we were getting bobcats on those cameras, but we really wanted to dial in our efforts and specifically try to target bobcats to get some more information about them. So again, we worked with the New York Cooperative Fish and Wildlife Research Unit out of Cornell to develop this study. And we were trying to determine the occupancy and density of bobcats in New York with a special focus on Central and Western New York, where they are still fairly new to our area. The overall goal was to inform future bobcat management decisions and develop a population model that incorporates both harvest independent and harvest dependent data. So data, that we're collecting from the hunters and trappers during the season to estimate population trends. We launched this in the summer of 2023, and the study is comprised of two components, and we'll talk about both of them. So the first component is a non-invasive trail camera study, and the second component is some live trapping and GPS collaring. So we had 5 study areas across New York in regions 4, 6, 7, 8, and 9. And most of those study areas consisted of a 72 site grid. Region 6 was a little bit smaller, 49 camera sites there. Each site was spaced approximately a half mile apart. And then the bobcat collaring that we were doing as a second component of the study was taking place within the participating regions. But you can see, where those, where the stars are. That's where we are focusing the camera portion of the work. So the first thing that we had to do is take those spacing parameters and determine where we could put a camera. We were looking for trails, logging trails, game trails, ATV trails that were infrequently used. Habitat breaks was another thing we were trying to key in on, such as hedgerows, beaver swamps, early successional habitat, or forest edge. Those were all things that we were looking for, usually starting with an aerial imagery search, trying to hone in on locations. But another key component of this project was participation from private landowners. So just want to take a second to give a shout out to everyone who participated. It was a large project, and we do not have enough state-owned land to be able to conduct a study like this without the private landowners allowing access to their property. And that goes for the Fisher work that we just talked about, and the work that Mandy will talk about in a little bit with the otter work as well. So our relationship with private landowners is really excellent, and we value that a lot. Here's a couple of photos of some sites and what they actually looked like on the ground. Both of these locations were repeat bobcat detections over a few year period. So we had an early successional site where it was right on the edge of some recent logging for a stand of young forest. And that was a site that we were getting a lot of different animals on, but repeat bobcat detections. And then this beaver swamp site where you can't actually easily see the dam, but it is there. There's a dam very close to that site, and where a swamp is meeting an upland type habitat, and we had repeat detections at that site as well. All right, so a little bit different than our methods for the Fisher survey. We were using 2 cameras at every single site. So that's why in this beautiful photo of this bobcat posing for us, it's what it looks like. You can see a camera behind that bobcat. So we've got 2 cameras slightly offset, and the reasoning behind that is to try to maximize our opportunity to get as much information from that photo as we can on that individual bobcat. We also used a CD with ribbon as a visual attractant because bobcats are very attracted to flashy objects, feathers, that kind of stuff. They're very visual. We used a commercial trapping lure to try to encourage the bobcat to not only walk by the camera, but also hang out there for a little bit, which is what you can see on the right-hand side. Both of these bobcats are rubbing up against this. One's a stick, one's a rock where we put that lure. And all of the cameras that we had out were out at the exact same time. So our survey period of 3 months in the summer, every site was functioning all at the same time. All right, so the second component of our study was collaring individual bobcats to obtain detailed movement information. You can see this bobcat does have a GPS collar. This is a photo that was submitted by a landowner who had a camera out scouting for deer or whatever they were looking for, and this bobcat walked by and they contacted us and said, hey, I got this picture on my camera, could you tell me more about it? And that was one of our study animals. So the summer of 2023 is when we started our camera work. In the fall and winter and spring of that year, so 2023 into 2024, we worked with licensed trappers who were participating as part of this project to trap and collar bobcats. We again went back out and did the same thing in the fall and winter and spring of 2024 and 2025. So the bobcat trappers were using a standardized protocol that went into detail on, every aspect of being able to do this in a way that would cause the least disturbance to the bobcats. There were factors of when they could trap as far as the temperature and weather. And there goes my light motion sensor. I'm just going to stand up and get that turned back on maybe, or maybe not. Sorry, guys. Hang on 1 second for me to just walk. I apologize. That's what I get for being the only one in the office right now. Anyway, so they had a standardized protocol of how to, how to check those traps and get in touch with the folks who are going to respond for the project, come out and immobilize those animals, process them, and take biological information. And then if they met the criteria for collaring, they would get a GPS collar. And you can see here, just based on the participating regions, we have, let's see, 16 total bobcats collared over the 2-year period. And this chart goes through the number of bobcats that were captured and then the number of bobcats that received a collar. So we captured way more males than females and had a larger number of males collared as well. And from that information, we were able to get really great movement data. on these bobcats. So this image is several bobcats out in Region 4. The GPS collars were programmed to record 1 point every 24 hours from the time that bobcat was trapped until April 1st. At that point, the bobcat collar switched over to collecting 1 point every 2 hours. So on average, we received about 900 points per bobcat. And from that, we were able to get some valuable information on the home range of these animals. The female bobcats have a significantly smaller home range than the male bobcats. And it does seem like they're selecting for the higher quality habitat as well. We also collected the health data on every captured bobcat. So even the bobcats that did not receive a collar, they still gave us valuable health data. And one of the interesting findings from that is that 25% of the bobcats that have been trapped for the project had been exposed to H5N1, which is a strain of highly pathogenic avian influenza. 3 of the bobcats collared died during the study. One of those was actually from avian influenza, which is very interesting. One was from unknown causes, and one was harvested. And the data from this will be used to inform our modeling by giving valuable home range and habitat use information. So piecing this all together, we have these 2 components of the study. One is the trail camera survey, and the other is the GPS collar information. And what are we going to do with that? So we had 134 bobcat detections over those 2 summers, and staff looked at those images and were able to identify some unique features on some of these bobcats. So for this particular bobcat, it was the distinctive barring on the inside of the front leg. For others, it could have been a notched ear. One had, it didn't have a tail, which I'm sure it's got quite the story to tell about that. So interesting features that that we could, identify as unique. So 15 individuals were identified as unique individuals on multiple cameras. And with that information, we're able to use a spatial capture recapture method in which we will, instead of just knowing that we have a bobcat on the camera, but we don't know how many, we can tell that we've got more than one individual using that model. That model will also incorporate the movement and habitat modeling that we're getting from the GPS collars to produce an aggregate level density estimate. So what's next? So we are done with the fieldwork portion of things, and the analysis is in progress right now. Ultimately, the information that we get from this project will be used to inform future management decisions and identify additional